everyone, welcome back to our Positivity Posters project, the video series that we are conducting in conjunction with Community Arts of Elmira. I hope you enjoyed our last videos. In this video, we're going to actually start working on our posters. Yay! This is my friend Bunsy. He's a character that I've developed that hangs out with me, and it's nice to have a little buddy around, and maybe you'll want to create your own buddy, so maybe that'll be something you add to your poster. We'll see. And then this is my friend, the lady paintbrush. I like to have her on my work surface too because she makes me smile. We've talked in the past in one of the other videos, and if you're just starting at this video, maybe go back and watch the video about the color wheel where I introduced you to my color wheel, which I created. But here's another color wheel I wanted to introduce you to. So it's called the Pocket Color Wheel. It's a guide to mixing color, and this one does some really cool stuff. So in the video where I showed you this color wheel, the one I created, if you remember, I showed you that if I had 100% red and I added a little bit of green, this is the color I got. And then if I mixed 50% red and 50% green, this is the color that I would get. And this is green plus a little bit of red and 100% green. So if you remember that segment of boxes that I showed you, this color wheel does this really interesting thing where it has these windows, and it says, well, if I add a little bit of yellow, so you see there's this yellow here at the very end, and this is on a separate wheel that turns. So if I go to a color, let's say I go to violet, and I add yellow, and if we remember, purple and violet and purple are basically the same word. If I use either of those, I mean the same thing. So if I add complementary colors, I get this muddy sort of color here. But if I add yellow to something that's analogous, so something near yellow, I get a different sort of shade. So then the same thing here. So if I have blue and orange, which we remember are complementary colors, I get this sort of gray color here, a neutral color. So it's really interesting. I just wanted to show you another type of color wheel that is out in the world. And then this side spins too. It can show you complementary colors. It's a really interesting color wheel. But you, like I showed you in this one, you can always make your own color wheel as well. Okay, enough talking about color wheels. Bunsy and I want to get to making a poster. Okay, so in your pack, you have some pieces of white paper. It's actually called cardstock. It's a little bit heavier than normal paper. It's a little bit heavier than what you'd put into a copier for the most part. And it's the paper that I used when we were talking about emotions, talking about mixing complementary colors. So you have this paper here, but maybe if you didn't get a kit at Community Arts of Elmira, you could just pick up any sort of paper that you have around that's a little bit heavier, because we're going to be gluing onto this, and we want something that has a little bit of weight to it. So for instance, I have this paper that was inside of a container of other paper, and look, this side of it is completely white and is heavy enough that I could use it for my project. So look around. If you don't have this paper from the kit, maybe you have something else. Okay, so what I like to start with when I'm creating something like this, and in the kits there are two of these. You could tape these together if you wanted, but I'm going to work on one alone. And the first thing I'm going to decide on is if I want to work in what's called landscape position or portrait position. So you can imagine that when the longer side is facing my body, that's landscape position. And you can imagine that if you were going to draw a landscape on here, this would make the most sense, because landscapes usually take up more of a horizontal space. And then a portrait, like if you were sitting and drawing a person's face or their body, typically a portrait is more of a vertical size. So you have to decide which way do you want your positivity poster to be. Something else that came in the kit is this flyer about the kits, right? And this one I created in portrait mode, in portrait. So it's more vertical, but I could have designed it to go this way, which is landscape mode. So you can decide which way you want your project to be. I think I'm going to work in landscape mode for mine for this one. And maybe I'll make more than one. Maybe you will too. So the first things I'm going to start thinking about are, what is it that makes me feel good? What sort of things in my life do I like? And I'm going to take a pencil and I'm just going to start to give myself some notes. So things that make me feel good. I really like dessert. And dessert has two S's, dessert, D-E-S-S-E-R-T. I really like dessert. I really like making art. Let's see. I love animals. And I really, not just pets, but I like animals. So I like cows and chickens, and I really have a big heart for those sorts of creatures. And let's see, I love music. I love my family. I love to travel. So you see, all the things I'm putting in here are things that I really like. Oh, I love books. And I'll also write library. I love my library. Do you know you can get so many free classes at the library? So if we go back to our lesson on our thoughts, so if we have 100%, if we're looking at 100% of our thoughts, and on a day when you're feeling just sort of in the middle and half of your thoughts are positive and half of your thoughts are negative, you're having an okay day. But if you can get to a day where like 70% of your thoughts or more are positive and 30% are not as positive, that's a better day. So what we're trying to avoid are days when most of our thoughts are negative. So what I'm writing down here on my list are things that I feel good about, things that I feel positive about. I'm not going to write down things that are in the negative. So I'm going to keep this list as talking about all the things that I love and that are positive. So let's see, I've got dessert, art, animals, music, family, travel, books in the library. I think that's a good start. And I may not use all of these things on my positivity poster, but I might. We'll just see. Okay, so that's my list. And I'm going to keep this list going. I might add to it. So now that I've got this all written down, I'm going to flip my paper over, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've recognized 7 different areas that I feel good about. So some of the things that I could do to accomplish the beginnings of this poster, I could divide this up into 7 equal parts. I could get a ruler and divide this up into 7 equal parts. I could do something abstract, when abstract means that it doesn't necessarily look like anything you could recognize. So it doesn't actually look like a cat or a dog or a house. It looks like just shapes, and you can use your imagination to decide what that is. So maybe I'll start with an abstract sketch. Oh, all right, now that I've said sketch, I'd like to teach you a new art thing. So artists sometimes will start an art project with what's considered a sketch. So they will make very light marks. So let's say I wanted to sketch a bunny. They will make very light marks. This may be so light that you can't see it on the camera, but they will make very light marks to start just giving themselves an idea of where their design is going to go. So that's considered a sketch. So it's like an outline. It's like a plan or a map for what you actually want to draw. And then when they're done with the sketch, they'll go in and make more solid lines, or maybe they'll use a paintbrush or a marker, and they'll make more solid lines once they have an idea of what they want to draw. So maybe you start your project with a sketch, which are just light lines or even dots. And then once you have a good idea for your project, then you can start making more solid lines. So maybe this is a gift that Bunzi is going to give somebody. Okay, so that's the difference between making a sketch and making your final drawing or painting. So I've just pulled up a new sheet, and I'm thinking about my 7 areas on my positivity poster that I would like to design. So I think I'm going to go with bubbles. So maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe they'll overlap sometimes. 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got 7 bubbles there, and I'll leave these as they are for now. So my things that I was happy about when I was feeling good about, we had dessert, and I'm just going to put the first word, so dessert, and art, and I'll put animals, and books, and my family, and travel. All right, so here is the beginning of what I think I'm going to put on my positivity poster. And then I've got all of this area in the background where I could expand on that. I could add to it. I can add new bubbles. So a positivity poster doesn't have to be finished all the way. You can leave space that you keep adding to it, or maybe you go on to the back and add more. Maybe you tape a second one on when you think about more and more things. Oh wait, did I miss something? Music. I missed music. So I've made some light marks. I made them a little heavy just so you could see them on the screen. And now I'm going to start filling them in with things that remind me of each of these things I love. So for animals, maybe I will I'll make a sketch of some of my favorite animals. So for sure, bunnies are some of my favorite animals. I like their big ears, and I like their big fluffy tail. So here I've got sort of a bunny sitting there, and I'll give him a tail. And I really like moo cows. So maybe I'll start giving him little ears. Let's see. And looking a little bit like a pig right now. Maybe, okay, so in spots. So again, I'm just doing sketches. So for travel, one of the things I love about travel, I love trying cafes when I'm traveling. So I'm gonna add a little drawing of a cup here, and whenever I'm traveling and there's a cookie on my plate, I love that. And I also love about travel, I love going to different museums when I'm traveling. So maybe I'll put admit one. So when you get a ticket, when you buy a ticket to a museum, and it's an art museum, and then dessert. Oh my gosh, I love cupcakes. I love cupcakes. So I am gonna start sketching a cupcake here. And then I've got books in my library. So maybe I'll start sketching a book here. And let's see. And what sort of book do? I like, and it kind of goes with the desserts. I love cookbooks, cooking 101, and my family. Oh my gosh. What can I write about? It feels to me like a big heart for my family because I just have so much love for the people that I care about. So maybe I'll just put a big heart that represents my family. Art. Okay, that's easy. That's, maybe I'll do a paintbrush and a palette. Maybe I'll put a palette behind it, you know, sort of like where an artist would keep their paints. And music. Oh, that some great music notes. So here I am focusing my thoughts on the things that make me happy. I'm focusing my thoughts on the things that make me feel good. Okay, so this is where I'd like you to get to. I would like you to come up with a list of things that really make you happy, things that you like to have in your life. Maybe you don't have it just yet. So right now I'm not able to travel very much, but I know in the future I will be able to travel more. So I've got that on my list. And right now I can't visit with my family very much, but that's okay. I am going to focus on my positivity poster a segment about my family. So that's what I'd like you to do. Make a list. And it doesn't have to be as long as mine. It can be longer, but get, let's say, a minimum of 3. A minimum of 3 things. So a minimum means 3 or more, right? So 4 would be great, but 2 won't work, right? So a minimum of 3, so 3 or more. Things that you'd like on your positivity poster, and think about how you'd like to lay yours out. You could follow my example where I put bubbles, but you could create squares. You could create triangles. You could create stars. Oh, stars would look really cool. I'd like to see that. It could be just abstract shapes, where you fill in designs that illustrate each of the things on your positivity list. Oh, I can't wait to see what you make. So thanks for hanging out in this video. In the next video, we'll get to adding some color and putting some collaged paper on it. And I'll see you soon.